Janet and I were married for 12 years. We have been lovers since we were 10 years old. I was never interested in college, so I got an entry-level job at Desmond Engineering as a draftsman straight out of high school. A year later, Janet and I got married, and the following year we became the proud parents of twin girls, Bethany and Brittany. Things were tough for the first few years, but we watched our pennies and things seemed to work out. I was still a draftsman, but I was a few grades higher than when I started. Money was better, but still tight. We managed to save enough money to buy a small house, and we had two nice cars. They weren't new, but they weren't old-fashioned either. Janet always wanted to be a housewife, so she never worked. We didn't need any extra money, so that was fine with me. We were both healthy and in good shape. Janet was a little stockier than when we got married, but not by much. She was just over 5 feet tall and had dark brown hair with bangs. She looked like little Marie Osmond. I haven't changed at all. I played right tackle on the high school football team, so I wasn't small, but I wasn't flabby either. Billy Martin moved to Reading from Lancaster about a year ago and took a job with Desmond Engineering as a surveyor. Billy and I played football against each other and immediately became friends. He also married his high school sweetheart, a redhead named Sarah. Sarah and Janet became instant friends. They didn't have children yet, but they were ideal nannies. When we weren't at work, Billy and I enjoyed each other's company. It was a pleasant breakaway from my wives. Of course, Janet and Sarah did the same. They went shopping together, went to parties and club meetings, and Billy and I watched the girls and TV. Sarah also took a job as a secretary at Gilbert Engineering, located just outside the city. I started noticing some things about 6 months ago. Previously, the PTA meeting was held once a month, but now it is once a week. Sarah didn't have children, but she always went to see Janet. The frequency of Tupperware and Magic Chef parties seemed to increase every month, but they never bought anything. They joined a book club, but never seemed to find time to read. On weekends, they spent hours shopping, but bought very little. Janet's collection of fashionable lingerie seemed to be growing, but I never got to enjoy any of it. It started eating me. I never mentioned anything to Billy because he didn't seem to care. I didn't want to cause problems if something happened. About an hour after I put the girls to bed, Janet came home from some kind of basket party. She took a shower before Sarah picked her up and took another as soon as she got home. This seemed strange to me. While she was in the shower, I quickly checked the basket and found a set of black lace lingerie. Who would wear black lace lingerie to a basket party? I'm not in the habit of checking my wife's panties, but I did this tonight and found that the panties were wet and sticky. I put them in my pocket. Until tonight, I had never once rummaged through my wife's purse or wallet. The only thing I was really interested in was her cell phone. Apparently, she was pretty sure I wouldn't spy because she hadn't deleted a single call in the last week. The majority of calls were addressed to Sarah, but a large number of incoming and outgoing calls were addressed to KC, KH, and KW. Of course, I had no idea who they were, but I quickly realized that the C stood for cell, the H stood for home, and the W probably stood for work. I checked her address book, and Sarah also had 3 numbers listed: Sarah S, Sarah H, and Sarah W. I was amazed at how well organized my wife's phone was. I looked at Sarah's work number and noticed that it had an extension. I looked at KW's number, and it was the same number as Sarah, but with a different extension. It wasn't hard to guess that Janet was calling and receiving calls from someone who worked with Sarah. It was also easy to guess that Sarah must have been the one who introduced Janet and the mysterious company, K. Gilbert. Engineering was now closed, so I took Janet's phone and called KW's number. Hello. You approach Ken Sanders' desk. I'm not at the table right now, but if you leave your name and phone number, I will contact you as soon as I can. I hung up immediately after the signal. It was too easy. John, are you going to bed? Janet simply poked her head around the doorway. I'm almost finished with this book. I'll get up as soon as I finish it if I don't fall asleep on the sofa. Of course, I had every intention of sleeping on the couch. It was a restless night. I kept trying to figure out what I did wrong or what I could have done differently. It was a terrible waste of time and mental effort. Every time I redirected my thoughts to what I should do, they kept coming back to what I should do. I kept looking at the clock, and it didn't move. All I knew for sure was that I was not going to take any blame for what happened or what was going to happen. I woke up to the sounds of my 2 little angels cooking breakfast. Janet encouraged them to take care of themselves rather than wait. It was a good idea, and it seemed to work. I was stretching and scratching myself when my wife entered the room. You better hurry up, John, or you'll be late for work. No problem. I'm not going to work today. Why? You never miss work. Too many personal problems? I yawned and trudged towards the bathroom. I needed a shower. Janet looked a little puzzled. When I returned, the girls had already left for school. I took a cup of coffee and sat down at the table opposite my wife. She looked at me reluctantly, as if expecting something, but not knowing what. Tell me about your novel. I didn't want to beat around the bush, but I almost knew she wasn't going to just open up and bare her soul. Be serious, John. Is that why you're moping? Do you really think I'm cheating on you? Yes. Now tell me about your novel. We've been married 12 years, John. Why would you even think such a thing? Janet, I have work to do today, and I'm not going to sit here and play games with you. I'll ask you again, tell me about your novel. My loving wife let out an exasperated sigh and leaned towards me. John, it's all in your head. There is no romance here. Well, I'd like to thank you for your honesty, but I can't right now, can I? She leaned back in her chair and sipped her coffee as if she had taken control of the situation. Can you answer me a few simple questions? Yes, John, of course. What would you like to know? Why do you go to PTA meetings every week, even though the PTA secretary says they only have monthly meetings, and you haven't been to one in 6 months? I do not understand what you're saying. She was a little less sassy. You and Sarah go to non-existent PTA meetings every Tuesday. Why would you lie about something like that? Janet pondered the question for a while, and then found the answer. I'm truly sorry, John. It's ladies' night at Rosie's Cantina on Tuesday, and Sarah and I are going for 2-for-1 margaritas. We didn't want you and Billy to think we were messing around, so you didn't tell us. It was a mistake, and I'm very sorry. From now on, we will inform. Nice try, Janet. Of course you know that I will check this. I'm sure Sarah will support you, but what about the people from Rosie? John, you're getting more out of this. When you go to little Tupperware parties and things like that, why do you take a shower before you leave and another when you get home? She was in no hurry again. A lot of women smoke at these parties. When I come home, I want to get rid of the smell of my hair. It's not a big deal, John. Why do you wear fancy underwear to go to these parties? You never wear sexy things for me unless it's a special night. Every evening you spend with these housewives, you wear your best. Why? I don't have a good answer to this question. I just want to feel dressed up sometimes when I go out. Her lies began to irritate me. It's time to put an end to this. I was angry, and it was difficult to control. These are the panties you wore last night. I threw them on the table. When you came home, the squat was wet and covered in something sticky. I know what the hell sperm is, and I know it's not mine. Don't try to tell me you have a yeast infection, or I swear I will. Hit you. Janet was squirming in her chair at this moment. She tried not to look at me. There didn't seem to be a quick answer. Damn it, Janet. Why did you come home with cum-stained panties last night? I want an answer. Stop it, John. Just stop it. I can't stand it anymore. We've been married for 12 years. How can you treat me like this? The continuous stream of lies and constant denial finally got to me. With all the strength I could muster, I threw my half-filled coffee cup across the room, smashing the front of the microwave. This time, there was no doubt that I had Janet's attention. I had never seen that expression on her face before, because she had never seen me angry before. Leaning across the table, I looked directly at her and spoke louder than before. Who the hell is Ken Sanders? She got out of the chair and backed towards the sink, trying to get away from me. Last time, who the hell is Ken Sanders? A friend. Just a friend. She was scared to death when those words came out of her mouth. Did you have sex with him? Yes. Yes, I had sex with him. Did you have sex with him last night? Yes. Yes, I did it. Stop it, John. Please stop this. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Just stop, please. She stood at the sink and bawled like crazy. I took a cup out of the cupboard and poured myself some fresh coffee. As I started to sit down, Janet's cell phone rang. Her eyes darted from me to the phone and back to me. This is from Ken. I think we better answer. I pressed the speakerphone button and answered the call. Good morning, sugar. I just came to work and saw that last night you tried to call me on my work number. Did you forget something at home? Janet, or should I say Sugar, seemed distressed. There was a moment of silence. Janet, are you here? Is there something wrong? She looked at me with a petrified expression. I nodded back to her. Ken. Ken. She hesitated. Ken, my husband is here. He knows about us. He has his phone on speaker. He didn't hang up, but he didn't answer either. I felt obligated to let him off the hook. Ken, good buddy. I have some things I need to do this morning, but I promise to come see you this afternoon. Maybe you should put 911 on your speed dial. I ended the call and put the phone back in my pocket. Janet just stood at the sink in her robe, shaking. I have to go. I have one more question. What is the name of the guy Sarah is dating? John, no, please don't make me. The second cup flew across the room and crashed into the tiled wall behind the sink. She jumped back and couldn't speak fast enough. Kelvin? Calvin Bostic. I'll be back this afternoon. Remove all your belongings before this time. My mom will stay with the girls until we make other arrangements. Anything you can't fit in your car, I'll get it for you. Let my mother know where you will be. Do not call me. She didn't move or say anything else as I walked out the door. Of course, I had no idea what to do next. I decided to go into the office and see Billy. I thought of him as a friend and felt that he should know what was going on. It was pretty easy to figure out that Sarah met Calvin at work and became friends with him. Ken was probably Calvin's friend, who needed a date. I may have simplified this a bit, but I thought it was close enough. Billy was not in the office. He was on the spot setting some bets or something like that. I called him on his cell phone. Billy, I don't want to bother you, but I have bad news. Is someone injured? Not yet, but they will. What the hell are you talking about, John? Janet and Sarah got themselves a couple of boyfriends. On all those nights when they had to go to meetings and Tupperware parties, they actually got together. You are sure? I don't believe you, John. Sounds like some kind of nonsense to me. Ask Sarah about a guy named Calvin Bostic. He works with her in Gilbert. I think she introduced Janet to another guy from there. Damn, are you sure? Damn it, John. I know Calvin Bostic. We were in the same graduating class. What about a guy named Ken Sanders? Yes, him too. Tall, skinny guy. Billy, I believe Janet is going to warn Sarah as soon as she can. Janet gave me a whole lot of crap this morning before I pinned her down. I'm sure you'll get the same from Sarah. Billy hung up and I went to HR to ask for a short leave. I didn't feel like working right now. It only took 10 minutes to transfer all the work I was doing to another draftsman. Around the same time, Janet's cell phone rang. Caller ID showed it was Sarah. Janet, what the hell is going on? Billy just called me. He arrives at the office. I think someone said something to him. I didn't answer her. Janet, are you here? Now is not the best time to play. Hi, Sarah. This is John. I had to borrow Janet's cell phone this morning. Mine was dead. What are you talking about, Sarah? What exactly did someone say to Billy? I couldn't help it. At that moment, I felt angry and disgusted. I'm so sorry, John. I thought I was calling Janet. I'll try to take her home. I don't think you should bother her right now. She is very busy packing all her things. She doesn't have time to chat. What do you mean, pack her things? She's going back to live with her parents for a while. The pause on the other end of the line was funny. I smiled as I imagined all the scenarios running through Sarah's head. I think it would be more important for you to tell Calvin that Billy is on his way. He could probably use a head start. Oh God, no, this can't be true. No, no. She hung up. This woman's nerves. We only had one credit card, so canceling it was no problem. We also had an ATM or a debit card. It took me 5 minutes to change the PIN number. I had no idea what to do with the checking account, so I just ignored it for now. In any case, I needed it to pay utilities and other bills. I just hoped Janet didn't take any receipts with her. The cell phone rang again, but this time it was my phone. Billy chased Calvin Bostic out of the Gilbert building and caught him in the parking lot. He was in jail and wanted me to tell his brother from Lancaster to come and post bail for him. I called his brother. There was nothing more I could do for Billy, so I went to Taco Bell. After lunch, I went to visit my mom and dad. I explained everything to them. Mom was more than willing to watch the girls for a while. She stayed with me during the week, and the twins stayed with them on the weekends. Now it's time to visit Ken Sanders. The guys in Gilbert's drafting department were eager to tell me about Billy's visit that morning. The drafting department overlooks the parking lot, and they saw everything that happened. Billy caught Calvin before he could get to his BMW. He threw him over the hood of one of the cars and started smashing his face. The guards followed them and tried unsuccessfully to get Billy out. Finally, one of them hit Billy in the neck with a stun gun. He wasn't home yet when they put him in the police car. They had to take Calvin in an ambulance. One of the guys showed me the office where Ken Sanders worked. It was empty. Looks like old Ken quit suddenly this morning. We walked past Sarah's desk. She wasn't there either, but it looked like she was still working there. 10 minutes later, I found out Ken's home address and headed to the parking lot. It was a small ranch with no garage. There was a white Lexus in the driveway, with the trunk and back doors open. As I approached the door, Ken Sanders came out with an armful of clothes. He dropped everything and rushed back into the house as soon as he saw me. I tripped over the things he dropped and managed to see him exit out the back as I entered. I had to laugh at his reaction. Damn, I wasn't like Billy. I was a good guy. It looked like the kind of place that would be rented fully furnished. That's why he didn't have a truck. In another 10 minutes, he would have finished and left town. I was looking forward to talking to Ken, but I didn't want to chase him. I looked around the room for anything interesting and got a few pleasant surprises. The first thing I picked up was his cell phone. It lay on the table in the living room, next to a folder containing his passport and some personal documents. There was a cute little laptop computer on the dining table. I couldn't find anything else, so I packed up the few goodies I had and left. I didn't want to do anything that could be considered criminal, so I resisted the urge to crash his car. This was beautiful. I think it was a crime to take things out of the house, but damn, he left the door open and anyone could have taken them. Unable to fully control myself, I let the air out of just one of his tires. He'd have to empty the truck to get to the spare tire, and I'm sure he'd do it with one eye on the street looking for me. I'll pick it up later. He received the message. I went into the prison to see Billy. His brother was there, and they were busy with legal matters, so I just waved and smiled at him. He seemed to have everything under control. Mom was already at home and dinner had begun. We talked for a bit, and then I took the things I bought from Ken into the office, where I kept my computer and everything. Before I could take a closer look, Beth and Britt returned from school. I decided it would be best to tell them what was going on before they asked. I didn't have a chance. Hi, Dad. What is Grandma doing here? Where's Mom? Bethany beat me to it. Your mother and I decided to take a little break from each other. She will live with her parents for a while. Brittany started to smile and Beth rolled her eyes and groaned. I win. Ha ha, I'm winning. I told you. Britt was gloating about something, and her sister was frowning. What's happening? What's so funny? Brittany volunteered to explain. Beth and I had an argument. I said your mom cheated on you, and she said that would never happen. Looks like I won. I never said anything about your mother cheating. We are not stupid, Dad, and don't treat us like children. We know what's going on. I just didn't want to admit it. Britt is right. Mom is cheating on you. How did you know this? I just found out. You're a little slow, Dad, and too trusting. Britt put her hand on my shoulder. It was strange. A 12-year-old girl trying to console her father. One Saturday when Mom and Sarah said they were going shopping at King of Prussia, Mom wouldn't let Britt and I go with her. She said it was an adult shopping day, and she would compensate us for it later. When we got to school on Monday, 2 kids said they saw her with a guy in Nobles Grove. We called them liars, but one of the girls had a photo on her cell phone. It seemed pretty trivial. I thought there must be an explanation. But Britt said she was cheating. Why didn't you tell me anything? They both just shrugged. A couple of weeks later, Tracy Mercer's parents saw Sarah, Mom, and 2 guys at TGI Fridays in Allentown. They told Tracy about it when they got home. I sat dumbfounded. Thank God Grandma invited us to dinner. We didn't discuss the issue during dinner, and I apologized before the dessert arrived. Luckily, the twins decided to leave the topic for the rest of the night. I felt relieved. I had just started looking through Ken's laptop when his cell phone rang. It was a text message. DKSRY 4 SNAFU. LYJ. Dear Ken, sorry for the trouble. Love, Janet. I'm not the world's best texter. In fact, I'm pretty bad. But I had no trouble reading this message. It came from Sarah's cell phone, which meant Sarah and Janet were together. I couldn't resist the temptation. TAJ. Thanks a lot, John. Now she knew that I had Ken's cell phone. I spent the next couple of hours going through files and folders on Ken's computer. There were no emails between Janet and Ken, but there were some interesting emails between Ken and some old friends in Lancaster. I was shocked by what I read, and I definitely didn't like it. Janet and I had been together almost our entire lives, and now I learned that I never really knew her. She seemed to have gotten closer to Ken in less than a year than she had with me in almost 20. While I was replacing the cartridge in the printer, I noticed that I was crying. This is not what I usually do. She had hurt me with her deception, and now I felt the salt in the wounds. Perhaps it was because of my tears. I printed out several emails and a dozen photographs. I would have taken more photos, but I ran out of expensive paper. There were no pornographic images, or even anything racy. All of them were suitable for mixed company. Beth poked her nose in the door and asked if she could call her mother. I didn't feel like I could refuse. My mother was with the twins while they talked to Janet and overheard everything. She didn't eavesdrop, but it seemed like the girls weren't trying to hide anything. Mom later told me that they didn't cut Janet any slack and blamed her for the whole problem. The conversation lasted less than 5 minutes. The emails were extremely interesting. Ken applied and was hired as an engineer for an alternative energy project in Spain. His start date was in 6 weeks. Apparently, he did not warn Gilbert about his departure. I'm sure Sarah knew, but no one else mentioned it. He had all the documents ready for the trip except for my passport. I'm sure he could find a replacement, but he better hurry if he wants to set a start date. I guess he could always go to the police and report that I stole it, but I didn't think he would do that. He hasn't booked his plane tickets yet. One of the letters to a close friend explained a lot. Janet planned to get a divorce after joining Ken in Spain. She realized that I would never allow her to take the girls out of the country, so she was going to declare me an unfit father. The letter didn't go into detail about how she was going to achieve this, but it did indicate that it would be severe enough to revoke my visitation rights for the twins or custody. It was completely despicable. Ken wrote this letter, so it was all rumors. I would have liked to have gotten something original from Janet, but I had to make do with what I had. I printed out several copies of this letter. Mom fell asleep watching Leno, so I sent her to our bedroom. The girls have already gone to bed. I fell asleep on the couch and there were 4 empty beer bottles on the coffee table. I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and bacon. Mom always prepared a good breakfast. The girls were finishing their cereal when I approached the table. I had to endure some good-natured digging before I could start cooking the eggs. The conversation was casual until it was time for the bus. Girls, I'm afraid your mother will try to separate us. She plans to declare me an unfit parent so she can keep you all to herself. I have no problem with shared custody if it keeps you two happy, but I won't give up my right to see you and be with you. I don't want you to have to pick sides, but I want you to know what's going on. Be careful and I don't listen to any lies. Dad, we are smarter than you think. Don't worry about anything. We love Mom, but we won't let her screw you up or anything. Brittany smiled and Beth gave me a thumbs up as they walked out the door. Mom filled my cup and sat down with hers. Relax, John. Everyone is on your side. After showering and shaving, I put on some clothes that were a little nicer than what I usually wear. When I left the house, I felt a little strange because I had 3 mobile phones with me. I made a mental note to buy the cell phone charger Ken had given me. I probably won't need it, but I'd rather be prepared for it. I checked into the family services office and waited for the caseworker to call me. I was confused when I finally got the call because I knew the woman who came to my aid, John Terrell. I haven't seen you for over 10 years. What did you do? Jody Mitchell was easy to remember. In high school, she was one of the goth girls. The goths had their own small group and stuck together. They were ostracized by most of the other kids, especially the athletes, including me. She looked normal now, but I'll only ever remember her for her pink hair, black lipstick, and dark eye makeup. The funny thing is that the goths could never determine whether they were into drugs, sexual deviance, or witchcraft. As for Jody, it was probably none of those things. But you always believe the most outrageous things. The sign on her desk read, J. Mitchell. So I assumed that she had never been married. 12 years ago, I could understand it. But today she looked, John, what can I do for you? My train was interrupted by her question. I discovered that I stuttered a little. You look great, Jody. She laughed at my awkwardness. You mean compared to how I looked before? Now I felt embarrassed. Probably. But I didn't mean to imply anything. Relax, John. I was halfway through college when I realized that I was smart enough to see the world as I was, without a false facade. I've been what you would call normal for almost a decade now. I'm much more comfortable saying normal than before. Damn it. But that sounds patronizing. I have a hard time keeping my foot away from my mouth. You must excuse me. Forget it. Why are you here? Before we begin, I need to ask you a question. Do you have a file or report on me? Anything at all? Her fingers danced across the keys like a pianist. There's nothing here, John. You married Janet Wilcox, is that right? Yes. And there's nothing under her name either. It sounds like you two are feeding your children rather than beating them. You have children, right? Yes. We have 12-year-old twin girls, Bethany and Brittany. Fine. Now can we move on to the problem that brought you here? Jody, this is a little far-fetched, and I know it may seem hard to believe, but my wife is planning to leave me and wants to take the girls with her. It's not hard to believe, John. We see this all the time. Shouldn't she have a reason to do something like that? Usually when a mother comes to us, she has documents or something else to support the accusation. You just checked and there's nothing there now. Right? That's right, John. But how do I know that you're not setting me up because you did something and she hasn't had a chance to report it yet? She may be obtaining medical information or police reports before coming to our office. Just because we don't show anything on our computer doesn't mean you didn't do anything. You say I can't win. No, I'm not saying that. Why do you think she's going to do something like that? I had no intention of showing anyone the email Ken sent, but now I felt I had no choice. I had to ask myself why I made copies if I wasn't going to give them to anyone. I handed one across Jody's desk. Where did you take it? I took it from a computer that I got illegally. I know it can't be used for any legal reason, but it's kind of proof of what's going on. The word conspiracy comes to mind, but I don't know the legal definition of that. I wanted to talk to you or anyone in this office because I didn't know what to do. I don't know how to protect myself and my daughters from something like this, and I can't afford a lawyer. Jody Mitchell relaxed in her chair. I looked at her and didn't blink. She rocked back and forth several times and leaned toward me. Can you come back tomorrow morning? Yes. Fine. See you then. Can I keep this copy of the letter? I nodded yes and turned to walk out the door. It was nice to see you, John. I smiled and she smiled back. I forgot the goth girl and saw a new Jody. I didn't know any lawyers and didn't know anyone who knew lawyers, so I had to pick one from the phone book. I knew that she was planning to divorce me, but under the circumstances, things could change. I didn't want to take any risks. I wasn't sure what our financial picture would look like in the next few days or weeks, so I asked the lawyer to give me a price up front for the entire package and paid it in cash. I advised him to do it the fastest and easiest way he knows. If she wanted a house, she could have it. Because the property depreciated, it was worth less than the mortgage. I also insisted on joint custody of the twins. At a minimum, I would take full custody if he could do it. I would pay child support, but not alimony. Billy called me on the way to lunch. He needed housing, and I, of course, offered to shelter him. We met at Taco Bell for a gourmet lunch. When I approached, a stupid smile appeared on his face. I know you can't be that happy. What's happened? A friend of mine who works at Community General Hospital told me a little information about Calvin. Sarah went there to visit him. While she was there, Calvin's wife came in with their 2 children. Sarah had no idea what she was playing. Things got so messy that hospital security had to escort Sarah out. I walked past Gilbert to talk to her, and she was no longer there. She was gone. I think she should be home now, but I'm not sure. Why didn't his wife live here with him? I don't know. Why didn't he go home to his wife and kids on the weekends? I don't know that either. Honestly, I don't care. Billy took a week off from work to sort out his affairs. I didn't know where he would sleep since my mother also lived at home, but we decided that we would figure something out. He was going to go to his house to try and pick up some clothes and his personal belongings in case Sarah wasn't there. He decided he didn't want to talk to her anymore. I was on my way to see my insurance agent, but I didn't make it because my cell phone rang again. John, this is Cameron Wilcox. Can you come over for a while so we can try to figure things out? Janet is in complete despair, and her mother is not helping. Who will be there? The 3 of us and Janet's sister, Carla. I'm not sure what you're hoping to achieve, but I'll be there in about 20 minutes. It was a dark group. I took a folder of goodies with me and gave up coffee. Who wants to start? John, Janet seems to think you're overreacting. She claims that you were furious and made her say things that weren't true to calm you down. She claims she didn't do anything wrong and you have no right to kick her out. I had the distinct impression that my dear wife was telling a very embellished version of what happened to her parents. I can understand why she didn't want to admit to them that she had cheated on her, but she resented the fact that she shifted the blame onto me. What do you want me to do, Cameron? Prove she's a liar or admit I made a mistake? I'd just like to see a few facts so we can better understand the situation. What did she tell you about her friend? She claims she didn't have a boyfriend. She just had a few drinks with friends Sarah worked with and that you misinterpreted it. Cameron, she's had over 80 phone conversations with this random friend in the last month. How many times has she called you and her mother in the last month? They both looked at Janet. She looked at her feet, not at them. Is this like a random friend she meets for drinks every now and then? No one was talking when I pulled out Ken's cell phone. Carla, can you read text messages? This letter was sent to a random friend of hers right after I kicked her out. Why don't you read it to everyone? Dear Ken, sorry for the trouble. Love, Janet. Carla returned my phone. Does this sound like a casual friend? Janet covered her face with her hands. Cameron shook his head slowly. A couple of weeks ago, Janet and her friend Sarah told everyone they were going shopping at the King of Prussia Mall. The twins begged to go with them, but their mother said no. Here are some photos taken during this trip. I handed Cameron 6 photographs. He looked at them and handed them to Martha and Carla. This is not like the King of Prussia. It's like Nebelgrove. Damn it, Janet, what's going on? Until this moment, Martha had been silent. Janet, in every photo you are holding onto that person's hand for dear life. It's not something you do with friends. It looks like the guy in these photos, Ken, is much more than just a friend, I guess. Are you trying to pull me here? The tears flowed slowly and quietly. This was not what she had hoped for. She didn't expect these photos. Here are a few more of the same. I think 2 of them are from Olive Garden, and one looks like Red Lobster. I have a few more. Luckily, my loving wife is wearing all of them. I think we've seen enough, John. I'm sorry we had to call you here for this. Cameron seemed upset at how he had been tricked. When I stood up, Janet was leaving the room, sobbing like a child. We never got to discuss the stains on her underwear. I think at that time there was no need for this. Cameron walked me to the door. John, I'm sorry we can't undo what's been done, but I guarantee you it won't be ignored. He shook my hand as I left. When I got home, Mom and Billy had already set up a fold-out bed in the living room. It wasn't really a hallway, just a small extra room where I kept my computer. Billy had a pile of extra clothes in the corner that he had taken from home. Sarah wasn't home when he came in. The most interesting thing that was waiting for me when I returned home was the mail. In fact, he was waiting not for me, but for Janet. A beautiful official envelope from the passport department. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I couldn't help myself. It was, of course, a passport, but more precisely, a family passport. The photo was of Janet and 2 girls. I remember the girls telling me that they had their picture taken, but I never imagined it was for that purpose. Of course, my passport was not in the envelope. I immediately called Cameron and asked him to tell Janet that the goods had arrived. If she needed a passport, all she had to do was send Ken home to pick it up. I would only give it to Ken. I was usually at work when the letter arrived. I would never have known she got it. Cameron told me that they had asked Janet to find another place to live. They had no idea where she was going to go. They seemed a little angry with their daughter. He promised to tell her about the passport. The conversation over dinner was interesting and mostly comprised of girls. Today, a woman from family service came to our school, Bethany said with a shy smile. Would you like to talk a little more about this? Did she talk to you together or separately? We are both at the same time. Her name was Jody. She said you went to high school together. We went to the same high school at the same time, but we weren't together. Britt frowned at me for being smart. Pay attention, Dad. What did she want to talk to you about? You. All she talked about was you. Beth and I agreed that she liked you. Did you understand this from a short conversation? She talked to us for over an hour. We missed the gym and the geography part. They were both talking at the same time, and I was having a hard time keeping up with them. Dinner was interrupted by Carla's phone call. She wanted to talk. I met Sister Janet at McDonald's. We took a corner table with 2 very hot coffees. John, Janet asked me to try to explain what was going on. She couldn't do it herself. This may sound stupid, but if I have questions, how will you answer them? I don't think I can. All I can do is talk and you listen. I'm sure I'll mess something up anyway because most of it sounded like gibberish when she told it to me. You are setting me up so that you can tell me that you have no answers. Only excuses and justifications. I always knew you were smart, John. Let's get this over with. I have other things to do. First of all, she blames Sarah for everything. Sarah started cheating on Billy, and it sounded exciting and romantic. Janet said she had never had an exciting or romantic experience. All she ever had was you. Loving and reliable. When Ken Sanders started in Gilbert, Sarah convinced Janet to join them for a drink and a bite to eat. While they were together, Sarah and Calvin often disappeared for a little lovemaking and left Janet and Ken alone. Eventually, they started messing around too, and soon, it was a full-blown affair. Once it started, she couldn't or wouldn't stop it. Ken impressed her with his stories of what he was doing and what he was going to do. She wanted to go with and share it all. When he asked her to go to Spain, she jumped at it. The big problem was not leaving you, but leaving the girls. She knew you would never let her take them abroad. So she was going to figure out a way to make you look bad, father. Now she knows it was a mistake. After talking with the girls, she realized that they are closer to you than to her. She decided that she would not try to have twins if you agreed to a divorce without any condition. That's all? Almost so? Yes? Fine. Tell her to go and apply. I will not dispute this if everything is as you described. Oh, John. One more thing. Janet would like to get her passport. Do you have it with you? Now everything started to become clearer. I had no idea how she planned to do this, but I suspected that she had not given up hope of taking the girls with her. They kicked and scratched all the way unless she had something up her sleeve. The family passport played a decisive role in the deal. Carla, my coffee is cold. I'm going to go home and take a hot shower. Do not call me more. John, what the hell is wrong? How did I make you angry? You know damn well what you did. Do you two really think I'm that stupid? Go back to your whore sister and tell her there is no way she can have my daughters. Since you decided to do it, help her. I'll have to ask you to never talk to my girls again. Carla was talking on her cell phone as I left Mickey D's. I can only guess who she called. I arrived at the family services office before it opened. You couldn't stay away from me, could you? Jody walked into the office with a big smile on her face and a Starbucks cup in her hand. She motioned for me to sit down and apologize for not having more coffee. I think you know that I talked to your daughters yesterday? I nodded and smiled. For some reason, I was a little tongue-tied, out of my element. I remembered that the same thing happened the last time I talked to her. Because I was with Janet my whole life, I never had the opportunity to develop any social skills with other women. Looks like I've paid for it now. Is something wrong, John? Apart from that, no. I wasn't trying to be smart. I just couldn't formulate the words. I'm so sorry, Jody. I think I'd better leave. I'm not aware of all this morning. I'll call you later. Before you go, I would like you to know that I am getting a restraining order against your wife. I can't stop her from seeing or being with the girls, but I can stop her from taking them out of state or denying you access to them. It will be delivered to her before noon. This brought a big smile to my face, but I left the office anyway. I headed to the nearest Starbucks. This coffee definitely smelled good. Until today, everything was under control. Now I felt depressed and confused. I drove around for a bit and then headed home. Billy told me that Sarah had moved back to her parents' house near Ephrata, so he was only returning to his place until he could sell or rent it out. He spent the morning at the bank, the insurance company, and the law office. He wanted to try to get some money from Gilbert, but they didn't have a company policy against fraternization. His lawyer said it will be an uphill battle. He walked past the hospital and learned that Calvin was being discharged. His wife was filling out paperwork for her discharge when she saw Billy. Before he could leave, she cornered him and carefully explained that she was trying to get Calvin to drop the charges against him. He was very surprised when she thanked him for his help. Apparently, she had been trying to fix the situation with Kelvin for several years without success. After Billy left, I just sat on the porch and drank beer. Mom brought me a meatloaf sandwich and sat with me for a while. She didn't say anything, but she drank the beer. She said that Dad would come for dinner and stay the night. When Jody Mitchell pulled up, Mom came into the house. Jody sat next to me, but refused the cold beer I offered. We sat there for a few seconds before she spoke. I served Janet's papers about an hour ago. She was a very angry woman. By the way, she was staying with her sister. I finished the long neck that I was holding in my hand. I think it's good, but why do I feel so bad? In such cases, there is nothing good, John, just less bad. I pulled out another beer, paused, and put it back in the refrigerator. Could you come in and explain all this to the girls? I get along well with them, but no matter how carefully I express myself, it will sound like I'm blaming their mother. I'm afraid if I do this, I will somehow push them away. I do not want to do this. How about 7 tonight? I nodded as she stood up and walked to her car. She stopped halfway and looked back. This was a good sign, and I smiled. She smiled back. Jody came over that evening and spent a long time with Beth and Britt. Billy and I were busy searching his house and clearing out anything that belonged to Sarah or reminded him of Sarah. Jody started coming to our house several times a week. Pretty soon, she was spending as much time with my mom as she was with the girls. I noticed that she was ignoring me. This suited me, but I was curious. One evening, after the girls had gone to bed, she sat next to me. I felt like I had to talk to her. I didn't have the chance. She spoke first. Danny, do you have any wine? Something like that. My speaking skills still needed work. What does it mean? I don't have anything with a cork. I have wine, but it all has screw caps. She seemed to think it was funny. Bring me something red and bring me a bottle. Well, the bottle looked more like a jug, but she didn't seem to mind. I poured it, and we drank. Finally, I forced myself to break the ice. I think the girls get a lot of benefit from your visits. How long will you have to see them? Oh, the twins are fine. They don't need to see me. I came to her to see you. I don't understand. You barely even talk to me when you're here. I thought that was what you wanted. Not really. I was just afraid you had some kind of rule against fraternizing with clients. Her quiet laugh made me feel more comfortable. I'm amazed that you didn't even ask to see my tattoos. What tattoos? It was clear that she was trying to engage me in some frivolous conversation to try to relax me. It was a good plan, and I appreciated it. I have 4 of them, and I got them when I was in high school. 3 are easy to find, but 1 is harder. Are you going to show them to me, or will I have to look for them? It'll be more fun if you watch, but I'm going to need some more wine if you're going to do this. We both laughed as I filled her glass to the brim. The hunt was much more interesting because we had to be quiet so as not to wake the girls. The 4th one was indeed in a very secluded place, and I admired her for a long time before she pushed me away. She left before the twins got out of bed, but I had a strange feeling that they knew what had happened. I told my lawyer from the phone book to finish the divorce papers and deliver them. Janet will have to accept what I suggest or do it herself. She was still living with Carla when the papers were served. There was no answer, and they didn't even call me. Several more weeks passed. Things weren't going well for my father. Mom spent more time there than with me. Fortunately, school was just ending, and the girls moved in with her for the summer. By the end of the summer, Dad was transferred to a nursing home. Billy and I helped Mom prepare the family home for sale, and Mom moved back in with me. Jody visited the girls at their mother's all summer and spent 3 or 4 evenings a week with me. They went shopping and out to dinner together, and I was glad for the attention Brittany and Bethany were giving. At least I didn't envy them anymore. I was pretty sure they knew what was going on between Jody and me. Janet called the girls about once a week, but the conversations were always short, and according to her mother, seemed tense. Most of the time, the twins didn't even tell me she called. Billy's divorce from Sarah was finalized. I had no idea what my status was. He also decided he wanted to start his own surveying business and asked me to come with him. I didn't have enough money to contribute until my mom came to the rescue. When she and her father ran out of money, Medicare picked up his expenses. Instead of watching it all disappear, she thought I should use it for business. I believe she also thought of it as an investment in her future. 3 months later, Billy and I had our own small surveying business. Fortunately, my drawing skills developed into drawing stories. About a week into the new semester, the twins were visited by their mother. They thought they would go to the guidance office to see Jody, and they were both disappointed to see Janet. They tried their best to be polite and respectful to her, but they still couldn't. She told them she loved them both and was sorry things turned out the way they did. She was going to Spain to see the windmills and would send them some postcards. She promised to call them every year on their birthday and send them amazing Christmas gifts. They said she cried when she left. Janet never called me to tell me she was leaving, but the next week her parents showed up at the house. They apologized again for what Janet did, but made no attempt to defend her or justify her actions. Brittany and Bethany were their only grandchildren, and they wanted to be able to see them. I had no problem with their request. They said Carla was too ashamed to come to me. She was torn between her sister and her parents. 2 months later, my divorce was final. Jody and I went to Red Lobster to celebrate. It was a rare evening without girls. They didn't seem to mind. In fact, I think they were, in some ways, happy. We spent the night at a local Holiday Inn. The twins were delighted when I returned home at 10 o'clock the next morning. They didn't say anything, but they smiled from ear to ear all day. A year later, things were going great, but unfortunately, Dad passed away. Mom expressed interest in moving to Florida with her sister, but did not want to leave the girls. The twins felt that their grandmother had to leave. They carefully explained to me that Jody could take her place, even though she couldn't cook as well as my mother. They also insisted that they were old enough to live in separate rooms. It was an obvious and good plan. The girls received birthday cards from their mother, but there was no phone call. She also sent many cards. All the postcards showed Spanish windmills. I wasn't sure what that meant. She sent them 2 fashionable embroidered dresses for Christmas, but didn't expect young girls entering their teens to experience a growth spurt. None of them seemed disappointed that the dresses were too small. Gilbert Engineering became our largest client. Billy was pleased to learn that Calvin was now teaching electronics at Lebanon County Vocational School, which was a big downgrade from his previous position. He was no longer married. Sarah remarried and moved to California. Ken Sanders didn't last 6 months at his new job. He was now working in the States, but no one seemed to know where. Billy contacted his high school's alumni association to see if he could figure it out. My best friend always thought I got away with Ken too easily. The strange thing was that the girls still received postcards with pictures of windmills. There was never any information on the cards, just general sentiments. Cameron told me that Janet called them several times. She worked at a travel agency in Barcelona. She never mentioned Ken or gave them any information about what happened between them. Jody and I went to Maryland to get married quietly. A year later, she was waiting. Brittany and Bethany were just as excited as we were. They were looking forward to having a little goth girl as a sister. I think it was some kind of private joke between the girls and their new mother. They never let me in on it. I never understood the significance of Spanish windmills.